Good afternoon. I'm audible. Good afternoon, students.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Sorry, good morning. So, are you able to see these slides?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So let me recall. So whatever we have learned in the previous class for continuity. Okay. So in the previous class, you have learned what is the importance of learning this course. So why the CS student has to take this course. Okay. So as I said, this course teaches you the design and implement of the various types of system software. Okay. And why you have to learn this? Because many companies these days are looking for engineers who understand both hardware and software aspects of any design. So even the embedded systems. Okay. Here, so what I'm telling is you don't have to be able to design the board or write software. Okay. But you should have some basic knowledge of the other while working with one. Okay. So you should be an all-rounder. Okay. So this course is essential for any computer science student. Okay. So again, as I said, there are many software programming situation where a programmer needs to understand, say for example, what the compiler does. Okay, because that can have a major impact on how the programmer write the efficient programmers. Okay, and as I said, the system software are strongly machine dependent. Okay, so if you want to become a system software programmer, okay, then you should have the knowledge of how the target machine architecture works, on which the system software run. Okay. So this course covers the system software overview, the operation of the assemblers, loaders, linkers, compilers, etc. Okay. So coming to the definition of a system software. So what is system software? Software intended to support the operation and use of the computer itself is called the system software. So system software allows us to develop the application software. Okay, and it consists of all the instructions that tell you how the hardware is used to perform a specific task. And what is the purpose of the system software? Okay, so the purpose is the users or the application software can focus on the problem solving without needing to know how the machine works internally. So that is the main purpose of the system software. Then what do you mean by application software? Programs written to carry out the certain tasks on a computer are called the application software. And so we have looked into the program development and execution stages where these system software can be used. Okay, so when you took your first programming course, that is computer programming, you are already using the many different types of system software. Okay, so which are those? So in order to create and modify program and save the program, you're using the text editor. Okay, so first is the text editor, which is also a system software. Okay. And then after writing the program, in order to translate it into machine language, you are using the language translator. So language translator is also a system software like compiler, assemblers, interpreters, and so on. Okay. So then after that, we are using the linker. Okay. So in order to combine the other object modules or files into a single object file using linker. Okay, so linker is also a system software. Okay, then we have used the loader in order to load the executable program into main memory. So loader is a system software. Okay, and then after execution, we have used the debugger, which is also a system software that is used to detect errors in our program. Okay. And as I said, uh, there is a relationship between the system software and the machine architecture. So one characteristics of the system software that differentiate from the application software is machine dependency. That means system software is strongly machine dependent because the system software is intended to support the operation of the computer itself, the hardware itself. So for this reason, okay, they are usually related to the architecture of the machine on which they run, that means the system software. And there are many machine independent system software also. Say, for example, general logic design of a compiler, the general logic design of the assembler. Okay, they are machine independent features. Okay, because the logic is common in all these system software. Okay. Then we have come across the difference between system software and the application software. Okay, so system software is machine dependent because they are related to the architecture of the machine on which they are to run, and whereas application software is machine independent. That means user need not have to know how the machine works internally. That means here in application software, the focus is on application, okay, or other problem to be solved. So as I said, the model one discusses the assemblers, okay. In order to understand the operation of the assemblers, okay, in the prescribed textbook, the author has made use of an hypothetical computer called the simplified instructional computer. So in order to explain the design and implementation of the assemblers. So before going to the design and implementation of the assemblers, we need to know the architecture of this simplified instructional computer. Okay. So the simplified instruction computer, as I said, it is used as an example. Okay. During the various design of the system software. Then what is simplified instructional computer? So simplified instructional computer is a hypothetical computer introduced in the system software textbook by Leland Delbecq. Okay. So why he has not used the real machine, okay, or real world system, okay, in order to test the design of these various system software. So the reason is due to the fact that most modern microprocessors include subtle, that means the complex functions for the purpose of the efficiency. Okay. So it can be difficult to learn the system programming, okay, that means the design of the various types of system software using the real world system. Okay, so that's why the simplified instructional computer is used to solve this by abstracting away the complex behaviors, okay, in favor of the architecture that is clear and accessible for those who want to learn the system programming or the system software. So this machine has been designed to illustrate the most commonly encountered hardware features and concepts while avoiding the unusual complexity that are often found on the real machines. So SIC is an hypothetical computer that includes the hardware features most often found on the real machines, okay, while avoiding the unusual complexities. Okay, and as I said, like any other products, SIC comes in two versions: the standard model that is called as SIC, okay, and the extended version it is called as SIC bar XE. Okay, simplified instructional computer bar extra equipment or extra expensive, it is called as. And the two versions are upward compatible. There is up programs Our standard SIP machine will also execute properly on the SIP for XC machine. And we started discussing the architecture of the SIC machine with respect to the memory and registers, data formats, instruction formats, addressing modes, instruction set, input and output. So let us consider these features one by one. Memory, how memory is organized in SIC machine. Okay, so memory consists of 8-bit bytes. Okay, and it has a 15-bit address bus, and any 3 consecutive bytes form a word. Okay, that means what is nothing but the number of bits that can be processed by this SIC machine at a time. Okay, 24 bits. So it can work on 24-bit data at a time, okay, and 3 consecutive bytes form a word. Okay, and what is the memory size or memory capacity? So there is a total of 32,768 bytes in the computer memory. And all addresses are byte addressable. Okay, if you look at the diagram at the bottom now, so at what do you mean by byte addressable? At each location there is a byte. Okay, and any 3 consecutive bytes form a word. Okay, so this is how the memory is organized in the SIC machine. And coming to the register. Okay, so as you know that the registers are the fast storage locations that is used to temporarily store data and instructions during processing. Okay, and there are 5 registers in the SIC machine, and each is 24 bits in length. That is, each is 1 word in length. Okay, and below is the table that shows the mnemonic of the registers and their users. Okay, the registers are register A, also called as accumulator, used for arithmetic operations, and the register X, used as index register. Okay, that is used for addressing, and then the register L stands for linkage register. Okay, so return address will be stored in this linkage register. Okay, that means the JSUB instruction, jump to subroutine instruction, stores the return address in this register. Okay, and then register PC, program counter, holds the address of the next instruction to be executed, and then register SW stands for status word. Okay, holds some useful information such as the condition codes. Okay, then coming to the data formats. Okay, so what do you mean by data formats? Definition, anybody knows? Precise manner in which data will be encoded in the memory is called as the data format. Okay, and as you know that the size of the data depend upon the microprocessor. Okay, so then how the integers are represented in the SIC machine? So here's the answer. Okay, 24-bit integer representation in 2's complement. Okay, so integers are stored as 24-bit binary numbers. Okay, and so here there is no floating point on standard version of SIC. No floating point hardware on the standard version of the SIC. So then how the negative values are represented, or the floating point values are represented? 2's complement representation. Okay, so 2's complement representation is used for negative values actually. Sorry. Okay, so 2's complement representation is used for negative values. Okay, and no floating point hardware on the standard version of SIC. Okay, so only integers are supported. Okay, so integers are stored as 24-bit binary numbers. Okay, and 2's complement representation is used for negative values. And how the characters are stored? 8-bit ASCII code for characters. So characters are stored using their 8-bit ASCII codes. And coming to the instruction formats on the standard version of SIC. Okay, so So this is the format of the instruction. Okay. So how many bit it is? The instruction format. 8 plus 1, 9. 9 plus 15 is 24 bit. So all machine instructions on the standard simplified instruction computer have 24 bit format. Okay. So what do you mean by machine instruction? Machine instruction has an opcode or sorry, machine instruction has an opcode and one or more operands. So what do you mean by an opcode? What do you mean by an opcode? Opcode stands for operation code. It determines what the instruction does, isn't it? And the operand may be encoded in the register itself or located in memory. Okay. So if you observe the format here, the first 8 bits are reserved for the opcode. First 8 bits are opcode field. Then the next bit is for indicating the addressing mode. Okay, X. X bit is used to indicate the addressing mode, the type of the addressing mode. Okay, and the next 15 bits reserved for the address of the operand. Okay, the address where the operand is stored. Okay. So that last 15 bit, the address field will position the operand in the memory. So there is the position of the operand. That is the address of the operand in memory. So this flag bit X indicates the type of the addressing mode. Then coming to the addressing modes. Okay. So what do you mean by addressing mode? Anybody? This you have studied in microprocessor now. What do you mean by addressing mode? Addressing modes are nothing but the different ways that a microprocessor can access the data, or it is a way of locating data or operands. Okay. Because as I said, data may be stored in the register or in the memory. Okay. So the addressing mode specifies the way by which the processor locates the data or the operand. Okay. So this standard version of SIG machine uses two addressing modes. Okay. How it is indicated? Indicated by the X bit in the instruction. Okay. So this X bit. So this is the table that describes how the target address is calculated from the address given in the instruction. And note that here we have used some parentheses here. Parentheses are used to indicate that it is the content of registers or memory location. Okay. So as I said, there are two addressing modes available in the standard version of SIG. Okay, which are those? See the table here. One is the direct addressing mode. So when do you say that it is a direct addressing mode? If X bit is set to 0, then it is a direct addressing. Okay. Then how do you calculate the target address? Target address is nothing but what? Target address is nothing but the actual memory location from where the operand is retrieved from the instruction. Okay. And it is also called as the effective address. Target address is also called as the effective address. Okay. So same as we studied in the microprocessor. Okay. If X bit is set to 0 in the instruction format, then it is called as direct addressing. Okay. Then the target address is nothing but simply this address. Okay. 15-bit address. Okay. So this is where the operand of the instruction is stored. The data of the instruction is stored. The operand data is stored. Okay. Target address is simply address. If X bit is set to 1, then what type of addressing mode it is? It is index addressing mode. Then how the target address for the operand is calculated? Target address is equal to this 15-bit address, okay, in the instruction plus X. What is X? Register X. What is register X? It is called as index register or index register. Okay. So the content of index register. So target address is equal to address in the instruction given plus the content of the index register. Okay. So that will give you the target address. Okay. The actual memory location where the operand is retrieved from retrieved for an instruction. Okay. Any doubts here, students? Are you getting? Are you there? Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Any doubts so far?
No, sir.
Am I audible now?
Yes, sir. Audible.
So the next features in the architecture is the instruction set. Okay. For instructions, to complete instruction set, you can refer to the appendix A of the page number 495 in the textbook. Okay. So textbook, as I said, system software by Leland Elbeck. Okay. So coming to the instruction set. Okay. So the simplified instructional computer provides a basic set of instructions that are sufficient for most simple tasks. Okay. And these include, which are those? Load and store registers instructions, integer arithmetic instructions, compare instructions, the conditional jump instructions, and the subroutine linkage instructions. Okay. What are load and store register instructions? Load and store register instructions are nothing but instructions that load and store registers. Okay. So which are those instructions? LDA, LDX, STA, STX. So LDA stands for load into accumulator from the memory location. LDX stands for load into index register, that is register X, okay, from the memory location. So STA stands for store from accumulator into some memory location, and STX store from the index register X into some memory location. So like that. So here is an example given here, right side. Okay, example. Say you have a memory location by name alpha. Okay, so which is a one word memory location. One word memory location means it can store or it can hold one word of data. Okay, so I want to store one word of data in the memory location named alpha into accumulator. Okay, so then how do you load it? So use the LDA instruction. Okay, load into accumulator a word from the memory location alpha. So alpha is nothing but a memory location. Okay, see the comment here that we have written here. Load one word of data from the memory location named alpha into the register A accumulator. Similarly, another example. Okay, from how to store from accumulator a word stored in accumulator or register A into the memory location alpha. Okay, use the STA instruction. Store from accumulator into the memory location, one word memory location named alpha. See, the content of one word content of the accumulator or register A is stored into the memory location alpha. Okay, and most of the instructions are one operand instructions. See here, LDA alpha. Alpha is an operand, no? Okay, so most of the instructions are one have one operand. Okay, one operand instructions. Next category of instruction, integer arithmetic instructions. So integer arithmetic instructions are what? Add, sub, mul, and the d. Okay. So all note that all arithmetic operations involve the register A and a word in memory. Okay. That you have to keep it in mind. Okay. All arithmetic operations involve the register A or the accumulator and a word in memory. Word means 24-bit. Okay. With the result stored in the register A. So after the operation, arithmetic and arithmetic operations, the result will be stored in the accumulator itself. Okay. And so here is an example. Okay, so we want to add the content of the register A and the content of the memory location alpha. Okay, then what is the instruction? Add alpha. Okay, so the content of one word content of register A is added with one word in the memory location alpha. Okay, and after adding, where the result will be stored, it will be stored in the register A or the accumulator. Okay, then the comparison instructions. So the mnemonic is the COMP. Okay, so this compare instructions compare the value in register A with a word in memory. Okay, so register A is, as I said, it can hold one word of data. Okay, so compare value in register A with a word in memory, and the result will not be stored in any registers. So instead, what it does, the compare instruction, as in the microprocessor, it will set a condition code. Okay, CC. Condition code means CC. What is that condition code value? Either less than, equal to, or greater than. So the condition code indicates the result of the comparison. Okay, less than, equal to, or greater than. Okay, so here is an example. Okay, so compare alpha. So what I'm doing here, I'm comparing the value in register A with a word in the memory location alpha. Okay, so the result will not be stored anywhere. Instead, the condition code is set. Okay, condition codes are nothing but less than, equal to, greater than, and so on. Like in 806 microprocessor, they are usually going to stored in flag bits, no, like zero flag, carry flag, okay, and so on, like that. Then we have the conditional jump instructions. Which are the conditional jump instructions? Jump if less than JLT, jump if equal JEQ, jump if greater than, then test condition code, and then jump. Then we have instructions for subroutine linkage, which are those JSub and RSub. JSub jumps to subroutine, placing the return address in the register L, linkage register, whereas the RSub instruction returns by jumping to the address contained in the register L. Okay, you can use these two instructions for jumping and returning from the subroutine. Then the next question is how the input and output is performed on a standard version of SIC. Okay, you know that each processor provides instructions for input and output. Okay, with the device attached to it. Example, the keyboard, the mouse, and so on. And on a standard version of SIC, input and output are performed by transferring 1 byte at a time to or from the rightmost 8 bits of register A. Okay, so that is what he is saying. Input and output are performed by transferring 1 byte at a time. Okay, to or from the rightmost 8 bits of register A. And each device is assigned a unique 8-bit code as an operand of IO instruction. Okay, that means in order to read or write to the write from the read from or write to the IO device, no. So each device is identified by a unique 8-bit code. Okay, so which is used as an operand. Okay, in the instruction. Next, we'll use the test device instruction. Okay, which is that instruction mnemonic is TD. Okay, so test device instruction tells whether the addressed device is ready to send or receive a byte of data. Okay, so before reading or writing to the device now, so what we will do, we'll test whether the device is ready to send or receive a byte of data. Okay, using this test device instruction. If the device is ready, that means if the condition code is set to less than, that means the device is ready. Okay, after executing the test device instruction now, if the condition code is set to less than, that means the device is ready. If it is set to equals, If the condition code is set to equals, that means the device is not ready. So once the device is ready, we can use the read data, that is RD instruction, and the write data, WD instruction, okay, to read or write to the IVA device. Yeah, students, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Shall we rejoin once again? Because it will close after 45 minutes now.
Okay, sir.
Can all of us rejoin once
Yes,
again?
sir.
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
So we'll continue for another 20 minutes. That's all. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Use the same link and rejoin.